Here we begin our marathon wrap-up to the Readiness Assurance Process quiz number 2, the quiz for Module 2. And the first problem that teams and individuals before them had trouble with was this number 3. And the question reads, well, you can read it, but I'm going to read it too. If the price is $4 today and there is no change in either demand or supply or demand, one would expect the price in the future to be what? Well, let's think this through. We've got the graph here, and if the price is 4, we've got excess demand, right? Quantity demanded is 6. Quantity supplied looks like it's about 2.5. So there's people that want to get want to get the good or service, but can't. And sellers also notice that as soon as they open their doors, their stock is gone. And they say, well, geez, we're open all day. We could raise the price, make a little bit more money on this, and it'd take us a little slower to sell out, but we're here anyway, and we could make more money. And that's what we're in it for. So the situation of excess demand, we would expect for that reason to lead to the actions of the market agents would cause the price to increase over time. Buyers would say, hey, save one for me. I'll pay a little bit more if it's there for me. I can't get there when your doors open at 8 a.m. And sellers would notice this phenomenon of selling out and say, hey, we can get a little bit more money. So that situation would lead over time to economic agents acting in a way that's going to raise the price of this good. The next one anybody had problems with was this number 6, and this is somewhat definitional, but all these definitions are important. So if the demand for steak increases as income increases, then steak is it a complementary good? Complementary good is a good, or two goods actually, that are used together. So I like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. When I put peanut butter on a sandwich, I'm only going to eat that sandwich if there's also jelly on it. So those are two goods I use together. They're complementary. I'm not one to put peanut butter and honey or peanut butter and banana. I know people do, but goodness gracious. Peanut butter and jelly, that's the all-American way. Anyway, substitute good is sort of the opposite of complementary good. Let's say I am interested in getting a certain amount of starch with my dinner. Think back to your high school health classes. So either I'm going to have a grain like rice, or maybe I'll have a potato, but I'm not going to have both, right? So in a given dinner, I'm going to go with one or the other for my starch, or maybe I have couscous instead of. Those are all substitute goods. All right, other definitions here. Inferior good is defined as a good that as people get more income, they use less of that good. So we talked about that in class. Kia automobiles, Hyundai automobiles, rice and beans, Hamburger Helper. There's a whole host of goods that when you're poor you use because they can satisfy some need for less money, but as you get more income, you actually reduce your consumption of those goods. But normally, and hence the term normal good, as we get more money, we have more of the things we like. We go out to eat more. We watch more movies in the theater. We take more airplane trips. We go on more vacations to wonderful places. We do more. We buy more things of the stuff we like as we get richer. That's normally the case, except for when it's an inferior good, and that's different. We just talked about that. Last two, they were together, so I'm going to talk about them in the same framework, and my comments about them are somewhat similar too. One thing that I would urge you to do as you consider these problems, just in a thumbnail sketch in the margin, just draw a little supply and demand graph. I didn't ask you to do it, and I wouldn't grade you on whether you did it or not, but it's pretty useful. So we see this laptop market initially clearing at P0. That's supposed to be an A, believe it or not. Laptop market, and clearing at P0 and Q0. Well, now the technology used to manufacture laptops has improved. The likely result would be what? Well, right out of the gate, let me eliminate a couple possibilities. A decrease in quantity supplied, an increase in quantity supplied, those would refer to movements along a supply curve. And if we're starting at this equilibrium, that's not going to happen when this event happens. This technology improves. So then we think I guess the possible answers tell us it's a supply event. But the first thing you do in an event study is ask yourself, is this something that would affect the demand for laptops or the supply? Notice the problem states technology used to manufacture laptops. So they're not talking about the better technology in laptops that might affect demand. This is just how you get them out of your factory and get them out there. And so this is something we had been holding constant to talk about the supply curve. Now this is getting easier. Supply increases. That's a shift to the right. So the price of laptops drops, and the quantity of laptops increases. So there we have it. And had you by mistake thought, oh, maybe that technology improvement would lead to a fall in supply, notice that would be a movement to let price would go up, quantity would go down. Does that make sense as being associated with an improvement in the technology to manufacture laptops? No, of course it doesn't. So the thumbnail sketch can help us think these problems through. So which of the following factors will lead to a decrease in the current supply of a good? This is an interesting one because one of the really important determinants of both functions, supply and demand, is the expectations of buyers and sellers of prices and quantities in the future. And this is especially true for non-perishable goods. So if we're talking bananas, this isn't that important. But if we're talking something like oil that can be stored by refiners to be refined later, buyers can buy a big, huge tank of oil or just buy a little bit to get them through the next week or two, depending on what they think the price of gasoline will be in this latter case in the future. So here, fall in the current price of a good or service. Remember, we're looking for what could cause a decrease in the current supply. So a fall in the current price of a good or service, well, that's just going to cause a movement along a supply curve, not a decreased supply. The technological advance that decreases production costs, we just did that one, and that's an increase in supply. So we rule out B as well. A decrease in the price of inputs to the production process. Actually, that's another increase in supply. That also looks just like that graph. Except for we're talking in general, not the laptop market, but you get the idea. So C's out. Hopefully D makes sense. Otherwise, it's a bad question, should have been challenged. But a belief that the price of a good or service will go up in the future. If I'm a supplier and I can hold on to that good or service for later, if I think I can get a significantly higher price in the future, that means I'm going to not sell as much today. I'm going to get more money by selling it tomorrow. So even the expectation of that supply is going to decrease in the future will cause a supply decrease today, because in the future the price is going to go up, and I'm going to wait. If I'm a supplier and it's a perishable good, I'm going to wait and sell it later because I can make more money. This is why oftentimes in actually the oil market, you'll see that just the news that forecasters predict a cold winter, which would lead to an increased demand in fuel oil, one of the important petroleum products in the winter time. Anyway, what you see is an immediate reaction to that news that, price is going up. And how can that be, right? Because it's not even happened yet. But it can be because oil can be saved for quite some time. And if an economic agent, a seller, thinks that they're going to make a lot more money selling it in the future, they'll hold on to it and wait for the future to before releasing that good or service. So that is this group of problems.